Physics PhD candidate Jonathan Black believes in logic and order, until his ex-girlfriend, the beautiful and chaotic Rose O'Neill, unexpectedly returns, threatening to derail his carefully reconstructed life. She cheated on him, but now she wants a second chance. Follow Jonathan as he navigates the chaos in designer genes that is Rose, relying on his best friends and their constant scientific judgment to keep him from making the same mistake twice. Chaos in Designer Genes, a physics student's romantic breakdown and breakthrough. Or, How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Singularity. Chapter 1, in which our hero demonstrates poor life choices. Jonathan Black had always believed that the universe operated on predictable principles. Newton's laws, thermodynamics, gravity, the fundamental understanding that if you microwaved leftover Chinese food for exactly 90 seconds, it would be edible. These were truths he could count on. What he had not counted on was Rose O'Neill standing in the doorway of the physics department's third-floor lab at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, looking like she'd walked straight out of a rom-com and into his carefully reconstructed life. "Hi, Johnny," she said, using the nickname he'd always hated and she'd always known he hated, which was probably why she used it. Jonathan looked up from his particle collision simulation, blinked twice, once for disbelief, once for the screen glare he'd been staring at for 4 hours, and experienced what could only be described as a complete system failure. His brain, normally a well-oiled machine capable of calculating tensor equations and quantum probability matrices, suddenly had the processing power of a potato. Rose, he managed, which was at least a word, even if it wasn't a particularly good one. She smiled. God, she smiled. It was the same smile that had convinced him to skip his quantum mechanics midterm to drive 3 hours to see that terrible indie band she liked. The same smile that had made him believe that maybe, just maybe, someone like her could actually be interested in someone like him. The same smile she'd been wearing in those photos on Instagram with Chad Brickman, 6'3" lacrosse player and apparent expert in the field of not being Jonathan Black. "Can we talk?" she asked, already walking into the lab like she owned it, like she owned every space she entered. That had been part of her charm, the confidence Jonathan had always lacked, the certainty that the world would rearrange itself to accommodate her presence. "I'm kind of in the middle of," Jonathan gestured vaguely at his computer screen, where particles were still colliding in colorful, meaningless patterns. "It'll just take a minute." In Jonathan's experience, nothing that just took a minute ever took just a minute. This was a fundamental law of the universe he discovered through rigorous empirical observation, usually involving his roommate Marcus asking for help moving just one piece of furniture. But he saved his simulation anyway, because apparently 3 months of radio silence hadn't been enough to help him grow a spine. Rose perched on the edge of his desk, a maneuver that required her to push aside a stack of journals and what might have been a sandwich from last week. She was wearing jeans and a cream sweater that probably cost more than his textbooks, and her red hair fell in waves that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Jonathan had spent considerable time during their relationship trying to understand the aerodynamics of her hair. He'd gotten nowhere, which should have been his first warning sign. "I've missed you," she said, diving right in with all the subtlety of a particle accelerator. Jonathan's internal monologue, which sounded suspiciously like his friend and fellow physics PhD candidate Priya Sharma, immediately started screaming. "Abort! Abort! Remember the Chad incident! Remember the crying! Remember the ice cream! So much ice cream!" "That's..." Jonathan searched for a word. His vocabulary, usually extensive thanks to years of reading scientific papers that used 17 words where one would do, had apparently gone on strike. "Interesting." "Interesting?" Rose's eyebrow arched in that way that meant he'd said the wrong thing. He'd seen that eyebrow a lot during their relationship. "I mean, unexpected. Given the whole..." He made a gesture that was supposed to encompass the entirety of their breakup, but probably just looked like he was trying to swat an invisible fly. "Chad was a mistake. Rose said, with the kind of casual dismissiveness usually reserved for incorrect orders at Starbucks. I made a mistake, Johnny. I want to fix it. And there it was, the reason she was here. Not because she'd spent 3 months in contemplative solitude, pondering the error of her ways, not because she'd been struck by some grand realization about the nature of love and loyalty, but because Chad Brickman, with his lacrosse stick and his impressive inability to pronounce quantum, had presumably done to her what she'd done to Jonathan. Karma, Jonathan thought, might be the only truly universal constant. I don't know what to say, Jonathan said, which was honest, at least. Say you'll think about it. Rose reached out and touched his hand, and Jonathan's traitorous nervous system immediately lit up like a Christmas tree. Say you'll give me another chance. We were good together, Johnny. Remember? Remember the planetarium? He did remember the planetarium, their third date. She'd pretended to be interested in his explanation of stellar evolution, and he'd pretended not to notice that she was mostly just taking selfies in front of the nebula display. In retrospect, that should have been warning sign number 2. I need time, Jonathan said, which was what people said in movies when they needed to advance the plot to the second act. Rose smiled again, victory already twinkling in her eyes. Take all the time you need. I'll text you. She slid off the desk, squeezed his shoulder, and left in a cloud of expensive perfume and confidence, leaving Jonathan alone with his particle collisions and his terrible life choices. He stared at his computer screen for exactly 30 seconds before pulling out his phone. Jonathan, emergency meeting required. Category 5 disaster. Priya, on a scale of accidentally deleted your dissertation to Rose is back, how bad? Rose is back. Oh, honey, my office, now. Chapter 2, in which our hero's friends demonstrate superior judgment. Priya Sharma's office was less an office and more a disaster zone that occasionally hosted academic work. Papers covered every surface. 3 coffee mugs in various states of abandonment created a timeline of her day. A poster of Richard Feynman hung on the wall with a speech bubble someone had added that said, "I'm judging your life choices." Feynman was definitely judging Jonathan's life choices right now. Priya sat behind her desk like a judge, preparing to deliver a sentence, her dark eyes narrowed in what Jonathan had learned to recognize as her "are you kidding me right now" expression. Explain, she said, in the tone usually reserved for undergraduate students who asked if quantum mechanics would be on the exam. Jonathan explained. He tried to make it sound less pathetic than it was, but there was really only so much lipstick you could put on that particular pig. When he finished, Priya leaned back in her chair, which creaked ominously, a sound Jonathan had learned meant she was about to deliver an uncomfortable truth. Let me see if I understand this correctly, she said. Rose, who cheated on you with a human golden retriever named Chad, has returned after 3 months of silence to graciously offer you the opportunity to be her backup plan. And you said you'd think about it? When you put it like that, is there another way to put it? Because I'm all ears for the interpretation where you don't sound like you're auditioning for a role in People Who Need Therapy, the musical. She said Chad was a mistake. Chad was a mistake. Rose made the mistake. These are not the same thing, Jonathan. One is a noun, one is a verb. This is basic grammar. You have a PhD. I'm working on my PhD. Don't change the subject. The door opened and Marcus Chen walked in, all 6'1" of engineering student confidence and athletic grace that came from someone who actually went to the gym instead of just feeling guilty about not going. He took one look at Jonathan's face and sighed. Rose? He asked. Rose, Priya confirmed. Dude. Marcus threw himself onto Priya's ancient couch, which groaned under the sudden weight. Tell me you didn't. I said I'd think about it. Thinking about it is the first step to doing it, Marcus said, with the certainty of someone who'd watched his roommate make poor romantic decisions for the better part of 2 years. Next comes one coffee won't hurt. Then it's maybe she's changed. Before you know it, you're back together, and we're all pretending not to hear you crying to Radiohead at 2 a.m. That happened once, Jonathan protested. 14 times, Priya corrected. I kept a log, for science. Why do you keep logs of my suffering? Someone has to document this tragedy for future generations. Consider me your romantic biographer. Right now, we're in the chapter titled, Jonathan Makes the Same Mistake Twice, a Study in Stubborn Stupidity. Jonathan slumped in his chair. This was going about as well as expected. Which was to say, not well at all. His friends were right, of course. They were always right. It was infuriating. I know it's a bad idea, he admitted. My brain knows it's a bad idea, but there's this stupid part of me that wants to believe she actually cares about you. Priya's voice softened slightly. That maybe this time will be different. That the universe is actually fair and people who hurt you will realize their mistakes and become better people? Yeah. Jonathan, Priya leaned forward, her expression serious. The universe isn't fair. It's chaotic and random, and it doesn't care about your feelings. You know this. You literally study this. Entropy always increases. Things fall apart. That's the second law of thermodynamics. That's depressing. That's physics. But here's the thing about entropy. You can create local pockets of order. You can't stop the universe from being chaos, but you can build something stable in your own corner of it. Rose is not stable. Rose is chaos in designer jeans. Marcus nodded sagely. Chaos in designer jeans. I'm using that. The point is, Priya continued, you spent 3 months putting yourself back together. Don't let her undo all that work just because she's pretty and you're lonely. I'm not lonely, Jonathan lied. Priya gestured to the room at large. You're having an emergency meeting at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday in my disaster of an office? You're lonely. It's okay to be lonely. It's not okay to fill that loneliness with someone who's already proven they don't respect you. Jonathan knew she was right. He'd known it the moment Rose had walked into his lab. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally were two different things, and his emotions were currently doing a terrible job of listening to his intellect. So what do I do? He asked. You tell her no, Marcus said, politely but firmly. Thank you for your submission, but I'm afraid it doesn't meet our standards for publication, Priya suggested. While we appreciate your interest, we must regretfully decline to move forward at this time, Marcus added. We wish you the best in placing your affections elsewhere, Priya finished, grinning. Jonathan couldn't help but smile. This was why he loved his friends. They could turn his romantic disasters into comedy routines, make him laugh even when he wanted to hide under his desk and never come out. Okay, he said. You're right. I'll tell her no. Promise? Priya asked, holding up her pinky finger. What are we, 12? Pinky promises are scientifically proven to be legally binding, Marcus said solemnly. I read it in a very credible source. Was the source a cereal box? A very credible cereal box. Now promise. Jonathan linked his pinky with Priya's, feeling ridiculous and grateful in equal measure. I promise. Good. Now, get out of my office. Some of us have actual work to do. You're literally playing phone Sudoku. It's for my cognitive flexibility. Now go, shoo. Chapter 3, in which the universe demonstrates its sense of humor. Jonathan managed to avoid Rose for exactly 36 hours, which was either a testament to his strategic planning or proof that she wasn't actually that interested. He was betting on the latter, but trying not to think too hard about what that meant. He threw himself into his research with the kind of manic energy usually reserved for people who'd had too much coffee and were trying to outrun their feelings. His dissertation was on quantum entanglement and information theory, which was either fascinating or incredibly boring, depending on whether you were Jonathan or literally anyone else at a party. The thing about quantum entanglement was that it was weird. Two particles connected in such a way that measuring one instantly affected the other, regardless of distance. Einstein had called it spooky action at a distance and hated it, which Jonathan had always found relatable. Sometimes things were connected in ways that didn't make sense, that violated your understanding of how the universe should work. Like how he could know intellectually that Rose was bad for him, but still feel that pull when she was near. He was contemplating this and other depressing parallels when his phone buzzed. Rose, coffee? I promise I won't bite. Smiley face. Jonathan stared at the message. He'd promised Priya he'd say no. He'd pinky promised, which, according to Marcus, was legally binding. But coffee was just coffee, right? He could meet her for coffee and tell her, politely but firmly, that he wasn't interested in getting back together. That was the mature adult thing to do. Face-to-face communication. Closure. Jonathan, okay, when? Rose, now? I'm at Quantum Grounds. Of course she was at Quantum Grounds, the coffee shop directly across from the physics building, the one Jonathan went to every single day at 4 p.m. because he was a creature of habit and incapable of changing his routine. He looked at the clock. 3 p.m. The universe, Jonathan decided, had a terrible sense of humor. He could ignore the message. He could stay in his lab and pretend he hadn't seen it. He could be strong and independent, and all those other things self-help books promised you'd become after a breakup. Instead, he saved his work, grabbed his jacket, and headed downstairs. Quantum Grounds was crowded with the usual mix of students, professors, and people who looked like they were either writing the next great American novel or having existential crises about their dissertations, possibly both. Rose sat at a corner table, 2 cups of coffee already waiting. She'd remembered his order, black, no sugar, because he liked his coffee the way he liked his physics, pure and uncontaminated by anything that might make it palatable. You came, she said, smiling. I said I would. Jonathan sat down, trying to ignore how natural this felt, how easy it would be to slip back into old patterns. I wasn't sure you would. I know I don't deserve... She stopped, looking down at her coffee. I know I messed up, Johnny. Really messed up. This was new. Rose had never been particularly good at apologies. During their relationship, conflicts had usually ended with her crying and him apologizing, even when he hadn't done anything wrong. It was a dynamic he'd only recognized in retrospect, which was true of most of the problems in their relationship. Yeah, Jonathan said, because there wasn't much else to say to that. I want to explain. About Chad. You don't have to. I do, though. Rose wrapped her hands around her cup, and Jonathan noticed her nail polish was chipped. Rose never had chipped nail polish. It wasn't about you. I know everyone says that, but it's true. You were so busy with your research, always in the lab, always thinking about particles and equations. I felt like I was competing with physics for your attention. Jonathan felt a familiar twist of guilt in his stomach. This had been her main complaint during their relationship, that he cared more about his work than about her. And maybe there was some truth to it. He did love his work. It made sense in a way that people didn't. Equations didn't get upset if you paid attention to other equations. Particles didn't demand emotional labor. But that didn't excuse what she'd done. So you cheated on me, Jonathan said flatly. I made a mistake, a huge, terrible mistake, but it made me realize what I had with you, what I threw away. She reached across the table, taking his hand. You're brilliant, Johnny. You're kind and funny, and you see the world in this beautiful, complicated way. Chad is simple. Everything is simple with him. And at first, that felt good, easy. But easy is boring. You're not boring. I'm pretty sure I'm the definition of boring, Jonathan said. I spend my Friday nights running simulations and eating microwaved leftovers. That's not boring. That's dedicated. That's passionate. Rose squeezed his hand. I miss that. I miss you. And there it was, the thing Jonathan had wanted to hear for 3 months. The apology, the explanation, the acknowledgement that leaving him had been a mistake. It should have felt triumphant, like winning an argument with the universe. Instead, it felt hollow. Because Priya was right. Rose wasn't here because she'd realized Jonathan was amazing. She was here because Chad had probably dumped her, or turned out to be as simple as she'd feared. or because being alone was harder than she'd expected. Jonathan was plan B, the safe option, the guy who would take her back because he was too nice, too lonely, too afraid of ending up alone. He'd been that guy once. He didn't want to be that guy again. "Rose," he started, pulling his hand back. "Don't," she said quickly. "Don't say no yet. Just think about it. We were good together. We can be good together again. Better even. I'll do better, I promise." Jonathan looked at her, really looked at her. She was still beautiful, still confident, still everything he'd been attracted to in the first place. But he could also see the cracks now, the desperation underneath the charm. "I need more time," he said, which was the coward's way out, and he knew it. But Rose smiled like he'd said yes, and maybe that's what she heard. "Take all the time you need. I'll wait." She left with a kiss on his cheek and a promise to text him later, and Jonathan sat alone with his coffee, feeling like he'd just failed a test he didn't know he was taking. His phone buzzed. "Priya, did you just go to coffee with Rose? I can see you from my office window. You're a terrible spy." Jonathan, "I'm telling her no. I just need to do it properly." "Uh-huh. And how's that working out for you?" "I hate you." Priya, "You love me. Emergency meeting, round 2, my office. I'll bring the disappointment, you bring the poor life choices." Chapter 4, in which a new variable enters the equation. Jonathan was halfway through Priya's lecture on Why Jonathan is an Idiot, a comprehensive analysis, when the door to her office opened and someone he'd never seen before walked in. "Sorry I'm late, I got lost." "Oh." The someone stopped, taking in the scene. Priya in full lecture mode, Marcus looking amused, and Jonathan presumably looking like someone who was being lectured about his poor life choices, because that's what he was. "Perfect timing," Priya said. "Jonathan, this is Amy Zhou. She's the new postdoc in the Condensed Matter group. Amy, this is Jonathan Black, who is currently demonstrating why smart people can still make spectacularly dumb decisions." "Charmed," Jonathan muttered. Amy Zhou was not what Jonathan expected, though he wasn't sure what he'd expected. She was tall, with black hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing jeans and a t-shirt that said Schrodinger's cat is dead and alive, and judging you. Thick framed glasses perched on her nose, and she carried a messenger bag that looked like it had survived several wars. She also had an amused smile that suggested she found this entire situation entertaining. "Don't mind him," Marcus said. "He's having a crisis." "Ex-girlfriend?" Amy guessed, settling into the remaining chair. "How did you?" "You have that look. Like the universe is conspiring against you, and you're not sure if you should fight back or just accept your fate." Amy pulled a book out of her bag, something about topology that Jonathan couldn't quite read the title of. "Also, I heard some grad students gossiping in the break room about someone named Jonathan whose hot ex-girlfriend was back. I'm assuming that's you, unless there are multiple Jonathans having romantic crises." "Just the one," Jonathan confirmed. "Lucky me." "So what's the crisis? She cheated, you broke up, now she wants you back?" "Does everyone know my business?" "Physics department," Amy said, as if that explained everything. Which, fair enough, it kinda did. The physics department had the gossip network of a small town and the social dynamics of a reality TV show. "Let me guess, she's really pretty, really confident, and really good at making you feel like you're the problem." Jonathan stared at her. "Are you psychic?" "No, just experienced. Had a similar situation in my master's program. Guy named Derek, very charming, very good at making me feel like I was boring for wanting to study instead of going to parties. Cheated on me with someone from his tennis club." Amy shrugged. "Took him back twice before I figured out the pattern." Twice? Jonathan felt simultaneously better and worse about his situation. "First time, I believed the apology. Second time, I believed the therapy promises. Third time, I believed in myself enough to tell him to take a hike." Amy grinned. Learning curve. We all have one. Priya was looking at Amy with something approaching reverence. "I like you. You can stay." "Thanks. I like your office. Very organized." That's sarcasm, Marcus translated. She's being sarcastic. I picked up on that, Amy said dryly. Unlike some people, I can recognize when someone is being sarcastic versus when someone is being genuine about wanting to get back together. Okay, I deserved that, Jonathan admitted. You did, Amy agreed. So what's the actual problem? You know she's bad news. Your friends know she's bad news. Presumably everyone in the department knows she's bad news, but you're still considering it. I'm not. Jonathan stopped. Was he considering it? He'd told himself he was just being polite, just getting closure, Okay, maybe I'm considering it. Why? It was a simple question, but Jonathan didn't have a simple answer. Or rather, he had several answers, and none of them made him look particularly good. Because I'm lonely? He tried. Because it's been 3 months, and apparently that's not long enough to get over someone? Because she's the only person who's ever shown that kind of interest in me, and I'm afraid she might be the only person who ever will? The room went quiet. Even Priya, who always had something to say, seemed at a loss for words. Amy, however, nodded like he'd just said something profound instead of pathetic. Okay, that's honest. Depressing, but honest. Thanks? Here's the thing, though. All of those reasons are about fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being good enough. Fear that this is as good as it gets. Amy leaned forward, her expression serious. But choosing someone because you're afraid of the alternative isn't choosing them at all. It's just choosing not to be alone. And trust me, being alone is better than being with someone who makes you feel alone anyway. Did you read that in a fortune cookie? Marcus asked. No, I figured it out after Derek number 3 when I spent 6 months eating ice cream and watching physics documentaries on YouTube. Amy smiled. Best 6 months of my life, honestly. Rediscovered why I loved physics in the first place. No one asking me why I had to work so much. No one making me feel guilty for being excited about my research. Did you read that in a fortune cookie? Marcus asked. No, I figured it out after Derek number 3 when I spent 6 months eating ice cream and watching physics documentaries on YouTube. Amy smiled. Best 6 months of my life, honestly. Rediscovered why I loved physics in the first place. No one asking me why I had to work so much. No one making me feel guilty for being excited about my research. Did you read that in a fortune cookie? Marcus asked. No, I figured it out after Derek number 3 when I spent 6 months eating ice cream and watching physics documentaries on YouTube. Amy smiled. Best 6 months of my life, honestly. Rediscovered why I loved physics in the first place. No one asking me why I had to work so much. No one making me feel guilty for being excited about my research. Jonathan felt something click in his brain. That was it, wasn't it? With Rose, he'd always felt guilty. Guilty for working too much. Guilty for being too boring.
Guilty for not being whatever she needed him to be at any given moment. She used to get mad when I worked late, he said slowly, even when I had deadlines. She said I was choosing physics over her. Red flag number 1, Amy said. And she never wanted to hear about my research, would change the subject whenever I brought it up. Red flag number 2. And she once told me I needed to expand my horizons and be less obsessed with nerd stuff. Red flag number 3. Honestly, Jonathan, how many red flags did you need? Were you waiting for her to start carrying an actual red flag? In his defense, Priya interjected, she's very pretty. Pretty is easy, Amy said. Pretty is everywhere. But someone who respects your passion, who thinks your research is cool even if they don't understand it, who doesn't make you choose between them and the thing you love? She shook her head. That's rare. Don't settle for less than that. Jonathan felt like he'd been hit with a particle beam of clarity. When had he started thinking that Rose was the best he could do? When had he accepted that being with someone meant constantly apologizing for who he was? You're right, he said. You're absolutely right. Of course I'm right. I'm always right. Amy pulled out her phone. Now, here's what you're going to do. You're going to text Rose right now and tell her, politely but clearly, that you're not interested in getting back together. No room for interpretation. No maybe someday. Just a clean, definitive no. Right now? Right now, before you can overthink it and talk yourself into having another closure coffee or whatever nonsense your brain is cooking up. Jonathan pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking slightly, which was ridiculous. He'd presented his research to rooms full of professors. He'd defended his thesis proposal to a committee of skeptical academics.
He could send one text message to his ex-girlfriend. Rose, I've thought about it, and I don't think getting back together is a good idea. I appreciate the apology, but I think we should both move on. I wish you the best. He showed the message to the room. Priya nodded approvingly. Marcus gave him a thumbs up. Amy just smiled. Good, she said. Now send it. Jonathan hit send before he could change his mind. There was a moment of silence, and then his phone buzzed. Rose, are you serious? After everything I said? Rose, you're making a mistake. Rose, you're never going to find someone like me again. Jonathan showed the messages to Amy, who snorted. And there's the real personality. That last one is probably true, though. You're never going to find someone like her again. That's kind of the point. Should I respond? Nope, you said what you needed to say. She's just trying to get the last word. Don't give her the satisfaction. Jonathan put his phone on silent and shoved it in his pocket. It felt good. Scary, but good. Like jumping off a diving board. A moment of terror followed by the rush of having actually done it. I'm proud of you, Priya said, and she actually sounded like she meant it. You did the right thing. I can't believe it took 4 of us to help him send one text message, Marcus said. Hey, I got here 5 minutes ago. I'm just naturally helpful. Amy stood up, slinging her bag over her shoulder. Anyway, I should go. I have a meeting with my advisor in 10 minutes, and I need to pretend I've read the papers he assigned instead of spending all day debugging code. Welcome to the department, Priya said. We're all devasters here, but at least we're disasters together. My kind of place. Amy paused at the door, looking back at Jonathan. Hey, there's a department happy hour Friday at O'Malley's. You should come. Might be good to be around people for a while.
Take your mind off things. Maybe, Jonathan said, which they both knew meant no. It's at 7. I'll buy you a beer if you show up. Amy winked and left before he could respond. I like her, Marcus said once she was gone. Everyone likes her, Priya said. She's likable, unlike some people who shall remain nameless, but who recently spent 2 months making us listen to Radiohead. It was 3 months, and I'm right here. I know, it's called tough love. Now get out of my office. Some of us have actual work to do. You're still playing phone Sudoku. It's break time. Even I need breaks. Out. Chapter 5, in which our hero considers socializing. Jonathan spent the next 3 days waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Rose to show up at his lab again, for her to call him, text him, somehow convince him he'd made a mistake. But nothing happened. She didn't respond to his message, didn't try to contact him. It was like she'd simply accepted his decision and moved on, which should have been a relief, but somehow felt anticlimactic. He'd expected more drama, a final confrontation, some kind of closure scene where they both said meaningful things and parted as friends. Instead, he got silence, which was probably more realistic, but definitely less satisfying from a narrative perspective. That's because real life isn't a movie, Priya said when he mentioned this. Sometimes things just end. No big finale, no resolution, just nothing. That's depressing. Welcome to adulthood. It's all downhill from here. Despite his tendency to overthink everything, Jonathan found himself actually feeling better as the week went on. Lighter somehow. Like he'd been carrying a weight he hadn't realized was there until he put it down. His research progressed. He had a breakthrough on his simulation that made him actually punch the air in excitement, alone in his lab at midnight like the nerd he was. He slept better, ate actual food instead of just whatever was easiest to microwave. It was almost suspicious how okay he felt. By Friday, he'd almost forgotten about the happy hour Amy had mentioned. He was planning his usual Friday night, lab work until 8, then home for leftover Thai food and maybe a documentary about string theory, when Marcus appeared in his doorway. You're going, Marcus said without preamble. Going where?
Don't play dumb. The happy hour. You're going. I have work. Your work will still be here Monday. You know what won't be here? Your youth, your will to live, your ability to interact with humans without having a panic attack. Marcus crossed his arms. You're going, and I'm going to stand here until you agree. That's kidnapping. It's helping. There's a difference. Now save your work and let's go. I'm not dressed for. You're wearing jeans and a button-up. You're fine. Come on. Jonathan looked at his computer screen, then at Marcus's determined face, then back at his screen. The simulation could wait. It had waited this long. Fine, he sighed, but I'm not staying long. That's what you think. Come on. O'Malley's was the kind of bar that catered specifically to grad students and professors. Cheap beer, decent food, and a complete absence of loud music that would make conversation impossible. It was crowded when they arrived, full of familiar faces from various departments. Jonathan spotted Amy immediately. She was at a table in the corner with a group of postdocs, laughing at something someone had said. She'd changed out of her usual jeans and t-shirt into a green dress that somehow made her look simultaneously professional and approachable, which Jonathan hadn't realized was possible. Earth to Jonathan, Marcus said, waving a hand in front of his face. Beer first, staring later. I wasn't staring. You were definitely staring.
Come on. They got beers, cheap IPAs that tasted like questionable life choices, and made their way through the crowd. Priya was already at Amy's table, deep in conversation with another postdoc about something that involved a lot of hand gestures. You came, Amy said when she spotted them, her face lighting up. I owe you a beer. I got one already. Then I owe you 2 beers. That's how math works. She gestured to the empty chairs. Sit. We're discussing the ethical implications of time travel, because apparently that's what physicists do at bars. I thought you discussed string theory, Jonathan said, sitting down. That's only after the 3rd beer. We have standards. The conversation flowed easily, which surprised Jonathan. He'd expected to feel awkward, to be the quiet one while everyone else talked. But something about the atmosphere, or maybe something about Amy's infectious enthusiasm, made it easy to join in. They debated grandfather paradoxes and multiverse theories, argued about the interpretation of quantum mechanics, laughed at terrible physics jokes that no one outside their field would find funny. At some point, the group shifted and reorganized, and Jonathan found himself sitting next to Amy, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. So, Amy said, nursing her 2nd beer, how are you doing, post-Rose? Surprisingly okay, Jonathan admitted. I thought I'd be more of a mess. That's because you were already a mess. You're just a different kind of mess now, a healthier mess. Thanks. You're welcome. It's a compliment in physicist speak. Amy smiled. For what it's worth, I think you made the right choice. The hard choice, but the right one. You barely know me. I know enough. You're a person who loves what they do, who gets excited about particle collisions at midnight, who has friends who care enough to stage interventions in dusty offices. She tilted her head, studying him. That's not nothing. Jonathan felt his face heat up, which was ridiculous. She was just being nice, making conversation. There was no reason to read anything into it. What about you? He asked, trying to deflect. How are you settling in? It's good. Different from my PhD program, but good different. My advisor is slightly less terrifying than my last one, which is a low bar, but I'll take it. Amy paused. It's nice to be somewhere new. Fresh start and all that. Running from a derrick? More like running towards something better. Or at least I hope so. The jury's still out. She finished her beer and stood up. Want to play pool? I'm terrible at it, but I enjoy making a fool of myself in public. That might be the most relatable thing anyone's ever said to me. They played pool, and Amy wasn't kidding about being terrible. She missed easy shots, scratched twice, and once managed to hit a ball so badly it flew off the table entirely. I'm beginning to think you've never played pool before, Jonathan said, retrieving the ball from under a nearby table. I've played pool. I've just never been good at it. There's a difference. Amy lined up another shot, squinting at the angles. It's all geometry, right? Force and trajectory? I should be good at this. Should be doesn't mean are. Wow, thanks for that wisdom. She took the shot. The ball rolled slowly toward the pocket, teetered on the edge, and fell in. Ha, physics wins again.
You do realize that physics is always happening, whether you make the shot or not? Don't ruin my moment with your logic. They played 3 games, which Jonathan won handily, though Amy claimed he was taking advantage of her disability. What disability, he asked. My disability of being bad at pool. It's very serious. Have some compassion. By the time they finished the 3rd game, most of the crowd had thinned out.
Priya had left an hour ago, and Marcus was deep in conversation with someone from the engineering department about structural integrity or something equally thrilling. I should probably go, Jonathan said, though he found himself reluctant to leave. Yeah, me too. Early lab tomorrow. Amy grabbed her jacket. This was fun, though. We should do it again. Get destroyed at pool by me? Exactly. I'm a glutton for punishment. She paused. Actually, there's a physics symposium next month. Couple of interesting talks on quantum information. Want to go together? We could make fun of the grad students asking obvious questions. That sounds terrible. I know. So you'll come? Jonathan found himself smiling. Yeah, okay. Great. It's a date. Amy's eyes widened slightly. I mean, not a date, a colleague date, a professional hanging out situation. I understood what you meant. Good, cool, great. Amy was blushing now, which Jonathan found unreasonably charming. I'll text you the details. Priya has my number, or do you want my number? Sure. They exchanged numbers with the awkwardness of 2 people who spent their lives studying the universe, but still hadn't figured out basic human interaction. Amy left with a wave and a promise to text him, and Jonathan stood there for a moment, wondering what had just happened. Dude, Marcus appeared at his elbow, grinning like he'd won the lottery. Did you just get asked on a date? It wasn't a date. She said it wasn't a date. It's a date is literally what she said. I heard her. She corrected herself. She corrected herself because she panicked. That was panic correcting, not serious correcting. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. You just got asked out by the cute new postdoc. We're just going to a symposium. That's physicist for date. Normal people go to movies. You people go to lectures about quantum mechanics. It's the same thing. Jonathan pulled out his phone. There was already a text from Amy. Amy, that was definitely more awkward than I intended. Sorry. The symposium thing stands, though, if you're interested, as colleagues, or friends, or whatever doesn't make this more awkward than it already is. Jonathan smiled and typed back. Jonathan, colleague sounds good. Looking forward to it. Great. I promise to be at least 20% less awkward next time. I'll try to match that percentage. It's a deal. Night, Jonathan. Night, Amy. He pocketed his phone and followed Marcus out of the bar into the cool night air. The campus was quiet, most of the buildings dark except for a few lights in the graduate offices, other students working late, chasing their own discoveries. You're smiling, Marcus observed. I'm not. You are. You're doing that thing where you try not to smile, but you're smiling anyway. It's very obvious. I hate you. No, you don't. You love me. I'm your best friend, and I just witnessed you taking the first step toward moving on. It's not. We're just going to a symposium. Keep telling yourself that, Marcus grinned. But for what it's worth, I think it's good. She seems cool. Normal, even. Well, as normal as any of us can be. Jonathan thought about Amy, her easy laugh, her terrible pool skills, the way she talked about physics like it was the most exciting thing in the world, the way she'd understood about Derek and Rose without him having to explain because she'd been there too. Yeah, he said, she does seem cool. And cute. I'm not engaging with that. You don't have to. Your face is already doing all the engaging for you. They walked back to their apartment in comfortable silence, and Jonathan tried not to think too hard about what any of this meant. He'd just gotten out of a relationship. He was supposed to be focusing on himself, on his research, on healing, or whatever people did after breakups. But then again, maybe healing didn't mean being alone. Maybe it just meant being with someone who made you feel less alone. Someone who got excited about physics symposiums and didn't make you apologize for who you were. Maybe it meant taking a chance on something new, even if you were afraid of screwing it up. Jonathan pulled out his phone again, looking at Amy's last message. Jonathan, hey, want to get coffee sometime before the symposium?
I know a place with surprisingly good lattes and terrible physics puns on the walls. He hit send before he could overthink it. The response came almost immediately. Amy, Quantum Grounds? I love that place. Tomorrow at 2? Jonathan, it's a date. Colleague coffee meeting. Sure, let's go with that. Jonathan pocketed his phone, still smiling. Oh no, Marcus said. You're texting her already. You've got it bad. I don't have anything. What happened to focusing on yourself, to taking time to heal? I can heal and have coffee. They're not mutually exclusive. Fair enough. Marcus unlocked their apartment door. Just be careful, okay? I know Amy seems great, but you've been through a lot. Don't rush into anything. I'm not rushing. It's just coffee. That's what you said about Rose. Jonathan paused. This is different. How? He thought about it. How was it different? Rose had been exciting, unpredictable, the kind of person who made him feel like life was an adventure. Amy was someone who asked about his research and actually listened to the answer, who made terrible jokes and wasn't afraid to be awkward, who had been through her own relationship disaster and come out the other side. It just is, Jonathan said finally. Marcus looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, I trust you. Just learn from last time, yeah? Yeah. They went inside, and Jonathan collapsed on the couch, suddenly exhausted. It had been a long week. A long 3 months, really. But for the first time since Rose had walked into his lab, he felt like maybe things were going to be okay. His phone buzzed one more time. Amy, looking forward to tomorrow. Sleep well, Jonathan. He saved her contact with a little atom emoji next to her name and set his phone on the coffee table. Atom emoji? Marcus asked, looking over his shoulder. It's thematic. It's adorable. You're adorable. This whole situation is adorable. I'm going to bed. Sweet dreams of quantum mechanics and cute postdocs. Jonathan threw a couch pillow at him and retreated to his room, still smiling despite himself. Maybe the universe wasn't so bad after all. Epilogue, in which the universe demonstrates surprisingly good timing. 6 months later, Jonathan stood in front of a conference room full of physicists, presenting his research on quantum entanglement and information theory. He'd expected to be nervous. Public speaking had never been his strong suit, but with Amy in the front row giving him encouraging thumbs up, he found it surprisingly manageable. The presentation went well. People asked questions that weren't stupid. Someone from MIT even asked for his email, which felt like a minor miracle. Afterward, Amy found him at the coffee station, grinning. You were great, she said. I understood maybe 30% of it, but the 30% I got was very impressive. 30%? I thought condensed matter people were supposed to be smart. We are smart. We're just smart about different things, like how to get free food at conferences. She grabbed a cookie from the snack table. Case in point. They'd been doing this for 6 months now. Coffee dates that turned into dinner dates that turned into spending entire weekends together, either in the lab or out exploring the city. It had been easy in a way that his relationship with Rose never was. Natural. Like two particles in quantum entanglement, connected in ways that defied simple explanation. So, Amy said, munching on her stolen cookie, that guy from MIT seemed interested in your work. Yeah, he mentioned a postdoc position opening up next year. You going to apply? Maybe. It's a good opportunity. Jonathan paused. What about you? You've been talking about that position at Berkeley. Amy shrugged. Also a maybe. I've got time to figure it out. They both knew what they weren't saying, that job decisions were complicated now in ways they hadn't been before, that distance was a factor, that the future was uncertain in ways that had nothing to do with quantum mechanics. We'll figure it out, Amy said, reading his mind. Whatever happens, we're both smart people. We can handle long distance if we need to, or we can both apply to the same places, or we can say screw it and become traveling physics buskers. Is that a thing? It could be a thing. We'd be pioneers. Amy finished her cookie and grabbed another one. Point is, we'll figure it out, together. If you want to, I mean. I want to, Jonathan said, and meant it. Good, because I kinda like having you around. You're useful for explaining particle physics and reaching things on high shelves. Romantic. I contain multitudes. Amy checked her phone. Come on, there's a talk on topological insulators in 10 minutes. Want to make fun of grad students asking obvious questions? That's our thing now? It's become our thing. We're insufferable. Other people hate us. Priya definitely hates us. Priya loves us. She just has to pretend to hate us because that's her brand. Amy grabbed his hand. Come on, I'll buy you terrible conference coffee after. They walked through the conference center hand in hand, and Jonathan thought about how strange the universe was, how 3 months ago he'd been ready to take back someone who'd never really appreciated him, how he'd thought Rose was as good as it got, how wrong he'd been. Amy squeezed his hand. What are you thinking about? Entropy, Jonathan said. Sexy, tell me more. Just that Priya was right. The universe tends toward chaos, but you can create pockets of order, local systems that work against the tide. And we're a pocket of order? Maybe, or maybe we're still chaos, just chaos that works well together. Amy laughed. I like that better. Chaos buddies, that's what I'll call us. Please don't call us that. Too late. It's official. Chaos buddies for life. They found seats in the lecture hall, Amy immediately pulling out her laptop to take notes, even though Jonathan knew she'd spend most of the talk messaging him sarcastic comments. His phone buzzed. Amy, this speaker has the worst PowerPoint design I've ever seen. Comic Sans should be illegal in academic settings. Jonathan, we're sitting next to each other. You could just tell me this. Amy, where's the fun in that? Jonathan smiled and pocketed his phone, settling in for an hour of terrible slides and Amy's running commentary. His phone buzzed one more time. He glanced at it. Rose, saw your publication. Congrats. He looked at the message for a moment, then deleted it without responding. Some things didn't need a reply. Some chapters were just closed, and that was okay. Amy glanced at him. Everything okay? Yeah, Jonathan said. Everything's good. And it was. The universe was still chaotic, unpredictable, full of uncertainty. But right here, in this moment, with Amy beside him and his research going well, and the future spread out ahead of him like an unsolved equation, everything was good. Entropy could wait. The end.
I love making these videos for you. If you liked this story, then please like, subscribe to my channel, and switch on the notifications for more entertaining stories. Please also leave a comment for any story suggestions.